So a lot of people have asked and said, well, gee, how come you haven't had a structural engineer down at the elementaries? There was absolutely no indication whatsoever, and we reviewed it with our building inspector and fire chief, and they agreed. However, approaching them again, they did say that they would still get out to the schools and do another check. But the bigger item is out at the high school. And in essence, what has happened is that because of the area up there with the flat roof and the amount of snow, obviously, that we had, it appears, and I'll do the layman's version of trying to explain some complicated things relative to how engineers and architects and contractors see it. But basically, if you look at the top of the high school, and we visualize this as being the table being the roof of the high school, on the outermost portions, the walls actually come up a little bit, and they're up maybe 2 feet or so, thereabouts. But if you were to go on the roof, even though it's a flat roof, there are peaks and valleys and pitches, et cetera, et cetera. But on that outer section, where the walls come up a tad, there's a gully there. All right, and those walls are actually called parapets in the construction industry. And obviously, with the amount of snow, they have built up to a tremendous capacity that could be 6 or 7 feet. At one point, had some hangovers with the snow. That, coupled with the snow across the entire roof, apparently, and I don't have the technical terms or the wording yet from the engineers, et cetera, but apparently, that caused some type of weight load issue on the structure that internally, now if you come into the building, and the example I'll use, if you don't mind, and I first of all compliment Rosemary Hanson, because Rosemary has been a point person on this and has become very, very involved in it. But for, again, layman's explanation, if this is the outer wall, and I can take you into the gymnasium, and I can take you into certain classrooms above the gymnasium, and I believe there may even be the kids in the cafeteria. But if this is the outer wall, something happened causing the weight such that we started to see, or custodians started to see, little fractures within connections. Now, if you were just to visualize this, a wall coming into another wall, typically that's either cement or some type of caulking that goes in there. You may see your own wallboard in your own homes, and that can crack at different times too as it dries out. So that's what we were seeing. And in the gymnasium, we have some structural columns in there near the bleachers on that outer wall on the south side. And as we started to see that, obviously it triggered concern of where else might this be happening. So upon further review, the custodian contacted our facilities manager. Facilities manager saw it, and then he contacted appropriate people, the building inspector and the fire chief. So in essence, what we have is some type of fracturing, if you will, or cracking. And then in one of the science rooms upstairs, again going to that outer wall, there seemed to be a crack in the floor, through the floor tile. And if you've ever been in buildings that you've seen the building settle over years, it's a common occurrence. But here we've got a building that's only a few years old, so the antenna go up and you say, what's going on? Did contact a structural engineer that Rosemary Hanson was able to contact, and had that person come in as soon as possible to look at it, because obviously the concern was, from a structural standpoint, was the building compromised. That was our view. We needed to check that out. Once the structural engineer got in there, and he's been in and out over several days, he from his initial review, did not think that it was a structural issue. Now, let me back up. I talked about columns, I talked about some cracking, et cetera, but that's the layman's view. When you get the experts in and they look at it and saw that it was an interior wall, and where columns were, we have columns, but they may not necessarily be structural, causing any structural integrity issues with the building. So he made that determination initially that he didn't think there was any problem with that, but that leads into the next piece of, well, let's check out the structure. And that is a steel structure, okay? that building is built solid, it's a steel structure. So what they then had to start to do was going into the concrete pillars, if you will,
Dr. Maloney, we don't have a lot of this in written opinion from the engineer, correct?
No,
We're still waiting for
That's
the
right.
opinion. So right now they're investigating,
that's right.
you know. I prefer not to go into a lot of details right now, okay? Only because we're waiting for that opinion to come through. You can describe what they're doing, you know, and you have to describe what they're doing. And so right now, the next phase is you're looking at the concrete, correct?
Looking at the steel structure, and the concrete, but more so the steel structure.
In certain locations,
That's good.
but it's not in the classrooms.
The steel structure is in the classroom, right?
The science area classrooms, and then it's in the gymnasium, and.
The steel structure goes out, and then they come in with the internal walls, and then there's external walls.
Okay.
So I'm just trying to, so people visualize, because a lot of the public has been asking, why the delay? Why can't they just go in and dig them in, boom, take it? It's not that easy.
Right. But just because we haven't gotten the final paperwork, they're still investigating.
That's right.
And that's why it's taking such a long time.
That's
As
right.
you're describing, they're going into all different areas.
That's right.
They asked us not to open the school for tomorrow,
That's right.
okay, because they're working in several areas.
That's right.
Now, we asked if we could, you know, for a half-a-day session, meaning that we won't be able to use the downstairs area, the cafeterias, and so on, if we can do that. And they said no, they were concerned about the wind outside this evening, and they were also concerned about conducting the investigation further. We asked if we can have them, you know, the students come back from today, they said no. So we have to listen to the building inspector and the engineers, safety experts. And we made our decision based on theory. And also, Thursday, there's a possibility, am I right, Dr. Mallory? We're hopeful.
We're hopeful that they can complete their work tomorrow. There's no guarantee, but they think they have the issue identified in a resolution, and they're expected to continue tomorrow. If they can get it done throughout the day, we may be good to go on Thursday. If it carries on to Thursday, I'm going to continue with the notices out, notifying the community, and we look to Friday. Right now, I don't see that it's a long term, but that can change as they go throughout their work. You know, each column, each beam is an entity unto its own.
So right now, can we safely say it's not a structural issue, or we're uncertain?
I'm not going to say that,
Okay.
because the architect needs to, I'm sorry, the structural engineer needs to say that to me, and then I can pass the information on.
Just so the board is clear, the weight on the roof, added to a lot of what's going on in the building, or caused it prematurely? Or we don't know.
I think the best that we're hearing is that it was a factor, because it was such a tremendous load. The building should carry it, it was designed. They haven't actually told us what they think the weight was, or what the carrying load is, but it's obvious something happened, and they think it's related back to the amount of snow. It took us several days to get the snow off, because the structural engineer wanted to see what type of effect that was having on the building. And in their judgment, it was having an effect, but I cannot speak what that effect is until the engineer puts that in his report.
So right now, you can safely tell us that they're investigating many areas of the house.
Yes.
So we can't open.
Cannot.
Ms. Hanson, can you also tell the board about the original engineer that was associated with the project, and the fact that he's involved because he has an invested interest?
Yes, when the issue was told to us Thursday evening, we were at a finance subcommittee meeting. The building inspector wanted the building to be closed, and so that's what we did on Friday. Friday morning, we secured a structural engineering company out of Nautica to come in and do an evaluation. We also secured two one roofing company and one construction company to bring a team of up to 40 people from each firm onto the roof to remove snow. They worked part of the day on Friday, all day Saturday, all day Sunday, and finished on Monday. And the structural engineer wanted to come back Monday after the snow was removed from the roof to see if there were any changes anywhere. They took a whole lot of pictures. Over the weekend, the architect that designed the building, as well as the structural engineers that were involved in the building, were notified about it. They came and did their own investigation, and the two companies have been working together to make sure that everyone is on the same page, and it's a beautiful thing in a sense because it's like a peer review. You have one professional company working with another professional company.
They're a good partnership.
Yes,
Because one knows the school so intimately, and the other one is objective enough to know what the goals and
that's correct.
issues are, so that is really good. Okay. Dr. Long, do you have anything else to add to Oxford High School?
Well, you know, I wish I could be the predictor and say that everything is going to go smoothly in terms of the work they're hoping to complete. I can't. I will say that I right now don't think that it's going to be a long, drawn-out affair, although several days, as the students have said, it really has an impact. But if there were the unfortunate circumstance that we had to be out longer, and by that I mean, you know, into another week or a week or two, then we'll be prepared to come up with contingency plans. And obviously, Mr. Favreau will have a key role in that, what we can do, because we cannot compromise the education of the students. So we'll be prepared for that, but I'm hoping and have not been dissuaded by the engineers or our own building inspector, we can't get this done within a day or two.
Can you tell the board what areas are they looking into? The gymnasium?
The gymnasium, and correct me if I'm wrong, I wasn't there with Frank, but on top of the gymnasium, up on the third floor, there's one science room in particular, but they're literally going through all the rooms and punching out the ceiling tiles to get to the steel structure. There's a corridor up in that floor, the third floor, or one of the walls where there's some cracking. But again, they think that that can all be fixed very readily, and that it's not a structural component, even though there may be some cracking there. We go on the other side of the media center, again on the south side, there are several rooms there where you have some similar cracking, and then down in the cafeteria, I believe.
No, the cafeteria was proven to have no
Oh,
issue
okay.
at all.
Okay, good.
They were looking into it.
They were, okay,
But
that's
some
not
of
so
them.
good.
And the auditorium, because it's right up, nothing in the
Nothing
auditorium?
in the order.
Nothing.
Okay. Very good. Okay, so those are the areas of concentration.
The cracking is in what they call a soft joint. It's not part of the structure. It's where, if you will, sheetrock meets block wall. And the block wall is not a structural block. It's it's not weight bearing. It's just attached to the steel structure. I want to make sure everyone understands that neither firm at this point, and they've spent an enormous amount of time there, has talked about a structural problem. There's some cracking, but it's in the soft material.